I got a lot to do today.
First time.
All right. Good morning, everybody. All right. Today's learning shall be schus and shama for a dear friend, Yaakov Couple ben Rab Shimon, Shama Shem Aliyah. So we left off today's daf pei gimel. I don't know, 7 lines from the top or so. Tana Rabbanan. So we had we had the Mishnah machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer. No, I'm good, thank you. No, I'm good. We had a machlokes from the Mishnah. I don't know if it's Eliezer. I think it's Rabbi Eliezer. Between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. Now, a person says, "You are divorced from me, except legabe Bab." Right? Rabbi Eliezer says that's a good divorce, and she just can marry whoever she wants except for Bab. And Chachamim say this is not a divorce. So Tana Rabbanan after the passing of Rabbi Eliezer, Nichlasu Arba Zakanim Laheshiva Dvarav. Right, there were 4 Zakanim. Right, it was a powerful pact of Zakanim, of elders, who basically had kashas on Rabbi Eliezer's shita. We're in Pei Gimel Amud Aleph. And Eluhain, who are those 4? Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva.
Were they waited till they pass away?
Yeah, they wait till they pass away. Good question. We'll soon see. So Nana, Rabbi Tarfon, the Amra. So now all of them are about to ask questions on the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer. That's where it's going now. And then there's going to be a pircha on 3 out of 4 of them.
Wait, this is Rabbi Eliezer was a term?
This is Rabbi. Yeah, this is Rabbi Eliezer. This is the Tana, right?
Yeah, I'm saying this is.
Yeah, the Rabbi Eliezer, I believe. So. So it's first Rabbi Tarfon, then Rabbi Tarfon. Hareisha Chozo. Venice is the Achiv Shazet. So let's say this woman is forbidden to marry Bob. So she goes and marries Bob's brother. And then what happens? Venice is the Achiv Shazet. That she was also to Mace. And then Johnny, which was Bob's brother, died. Now she falls to Yibam to Bob. Well, you told me I can't marry Bob from the original get, right? Mace blame about him. So Leinim says that right? So you're uprooting something in the Torah. The Torah says you have to do Yibum over here. You're preventing Yibum. All about the shades increases. So therefore, it's telling me that really that the increases that get was not a good get to begin with. Next question. Now Rabbi Yossi Aglili is going to step up the plate. No, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, we're going to come back to each one of these. So this is the first time we're going to get the second time. But then Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Vamar. Hey, Chamatzino, Asr Lezel, where do we find that a woman, she's also to marry Bob, but she's put to go ahead and marry Paul, right? Either you're also to everyone or mutter to everybody. Therefore, it must not be creases. This is not hakare davar between him and her. Right? When it says creases, it means something that completely cuts off between him, the husband, and his divorcing wife. Creases. This is not creases because she's still attached to him because she still has something that she's prohibited from Bob because of her husband. And then Rabbi Kiva now Rabbi Kiva is going to give 2 answers. Rabbi Kiva Amar Hareisha Chazov, and he says the Achim in the shuk. She goes ahead and she marries someone is a random person from the shuk. She marries Reuven. And she had kids from him, and then she had kids from Reuven. She got widowed or divorced. Then she goes, and then she goes ahead and marries Bob. So it turns out, her get was batal because she wasn't supposed to marry Bob. She married Bob. Therefore, the get was batal. She was always married to the original husband. Therefore, the kids from Reuven is our mamzer. Therefore, it must be creases. No, they're asking Rabbi Eliezer, so it should be mamzer. And Davar Acher, Rabbi Kiva says another point why Rabbi Eliezer is wrong. Hare, first white line. Hare Shah is love Koi. So let's say the one that she forbid from was Bob, and Bob was a Koi. Umeis Hamagarish, and the husband who divorced her, who said you can marry anybody but Bob, he died. So Lonim says Almana Etzlo, right? So to Bob, right, this woman is a widow. right? Ugrusha Yitzchak, but she's a divorcee, according to Rabbi Eliezer, to everybody else. Which would be a kavachemer. Ma grusha shikala. The isra of komer grusha, which is a light avera asura b'shul tzad gerushin, is asur because that she is a grusha to him, so therefore he can't marry her. Right, grusha shaba. So eishes ish, so she's eishes ish because she's still married, quote unquote, right, to the other guy, Lagabi Bab. Right, eishes ish chamura lekoshkeit. Soon obvious she's eishes ish to everybody else. Halabat she'in's increases. Therefore, there's not increases. So Rabbi Yeshua, ein mashivin es ha'ari liachar mitzvah. You can't go ahead and ask against the lion, the ferocious lion of Rabbi Eliezer after his death. And Amar Rava, and says Rava Kulu Islo Pircha. All these questions really have, you can ask, they have a hole in it, right? Labar mid Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, except Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, who says that basically this is not creases because there's still strings attached from the original get. The less of the Pircha, there is no kash in him. And Tanaim Alchas and I learn, I'm Rabbi Yossi, right? He has Divi Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, I see the question of Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah more than the other questions. Now we're going to get into what is the Pircha on each one of these questions. And by the way, another thing. And once we explain the Pircha, the Gemara is going to explain whether they understood Rabbi Eliezer as when we said in the Mishnah, right? You can muteras lakol el ploni, whether the ella means chutz or almanat, whether it means that accept or it means on the condition you don't marry that person. So now let's see. That's just sort of like a little preview. Now, Omar Mar, Nene Rabbi Tarfa. So Rabbi Tarfon says, she went ahead and married Johnny, who was Bob's brother. Right, that was also she married Johnny. Johnny died without any children, so therefore she falls to evil. It turns out, according to Rabbi Eliezer, you're uprooting something from the Torah. Gemara says, Eiker, I don't understand. Is he being Eiker? He didn't do anything. So Ella Masna, rather he's making a condition, don't marry Bob, because that potentially will occur in the Torah. So Gemara says, Masna, he's making the condition, right? The original divorcing husband making a condition. Right? I understand. He didn't tell her, hey, I'm divorcing you, you have to go ahead and marry Johnny to potentially uproot the mitzvah of Yibu. I didn't tell you to go ahead and marry the brother, the person you're also to. Ella garim locker davar Torah. Rather, you're causing something to be occurring in Torah. So garim, so you can't cause it. So Ella miyat, according to this, bas achiv, a person cannot go ahead, he can't marry his brother's daughter, right? Who he can marry, right? Shema yamus, because perhaps he's going to go ahead and die and inside garim locker davar Torah, and she's going to go ahead and fall to her father, which is there's no yibum, so you're uprooting yibum. So in that case, right, we don't say you're ukrim and davar min Torah, right? So how you do pircha? So this was the question on the right. This is the question on the question. V'mai. Now, what case is? How does Rabbi Tarfon understand Rabbi Eliezer? If he's talking about, he says you're divorced and you can marry anybody except Samisha Shar, Rabbi Eliezer. Actually, Rabbi Eliezer permits in this case. The title of Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer agrees that one who goes ahead and divorces his wife, the Amar tells her, you can go ahead and marry anybody except for Bob. Then she marries someone else in a shuk, and that her second marriage ends. She's permitted now, once she goes ahead and marries somebody else, anything that was left over, even the chutz from the original divorce, is now void. So that can be the case of chutz, because even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that she's allowed to go ahead, and therefore in this case she'd be able to go ahead and do yibum. So Ella must be almanas on the condition. Therefore, almanas, if you marry him, therefore it goes back and it ruins the original divorce, and therefore it couldn't have been that she married Johnny because she would have been an Eishes Ish. So that was Rabbi Tarfon. Period. You can put that one away. Now, next case. Then Rabbi Yosef Glili. So what was Rabbi Yosef Glili's question? Where do you find it? You answer to this one, but to that one. Either you answer to everybody or mutter to everybody. Gor says, I below. I understand. You find my kachin right now by kahuna. Right? Certain things are permissible, certain things are prohibited. So Be'isr Isha Kamina. No, we're talking about Isra Isha, right? When it comes to Ishas, I Bare Arais, Ishas. Actually, Arais. What about Arias, right? A woman is prohibited to this guy because it's her brother, and she's permitted to this guy because it's not her brother, or mutter to this guy. So Ishas Kamina, and it knows through marriage. What about Eishes? Right? A woman, right? She's married, so she's mutter to her husband, she's also to her neighbor. She's a married woman. So you see, it is possible to be also Lazeh, mutter Lazeh, and Hainu Pircha. This was the question on Rabbi Yosef Glili. Now, Uvemai, and how did Rabbi Yosef Glili understand Rabbi Eliezer's understanding of the Mishnah? Ilema ba'almanas, if it was when he divorced, or he says you can go ahead and you're mutter to everybody on the condition you don't marry Bab, Hare Hutra Eslo Biznus. Well, Lamaisa, she is mutter to him as Zuz. She can't marry him, but he didn't prohibit Znus, right? Ella b'chutz, right? Rather, it means, right, that over there we're talking about, she, is over there on the condition you don't marry, on the condition you don't marry, but Znus is mutter. But if he says, right, you're divorced to everybody except for him, and therefore she's still an Eish, therefore Znus would be usher. So Ella b'chutz, therefore b'chutz. Fine. Now comes Rabbi Kiva. Now Rabbi Kiva had two different kashas. We're going to deal with each one at a time, and also understand Rabbi Kiva's understanding of Rabbi Eliezer. Now, Nana Rabbi Kiva answered, or he asked on Rabbi Eliezer, the Yamar, a woman goes ahead and marries a random person, the shuk marries Reuven. And then she had children from Reuven. Then she got widowed, divorced. Then she went ahead and married Bab, who she was prohibited originally. So Loinim to get batal, it turns out that her get was batal and her children are mamzer. See, Hachi, if that's the case, in other words, you're so worried why you're going to violate the condition, right? Obviously, it's a little hint that he's going to understand in this way that it's going to be al tanakh. So you're understanding that any condition, what's going to happen is retroactively the get is no good, and therefore any subsequent marriage is now void, and therefore if she had children, they're mamzer because she was still originally married to the first guy. Anytime there's a condition, he says, I'll divorce in the condition you never to go to San Francisco. So she gets married, she goes to San Francisco. 10 years later, it turns out the guy is batal and she's never married the second guy. So tonight. So therefore, she can. Anytime a person gets married in a condition, right? Then perhaps the tonight is not fulfilled. Get batal, and therefore the guy would be batal, and then her children would be mamzerim. So Hainu Pircha. So this was the Kashan Rabbi Kiva. Now Uvamai, and how did Rabbi Kiva understand Rabbi Eliezer? If you're talking about except you can marry any, you can mutter call except for Bab, Mishashari. Then it'd be mutter. No, it does not uproot it, right? So Mishashari Rabbi Eliezer. The time Rabbi Eliezer would have permitted such a case. The time we saw earlier. The time Rabbi Eliezer in regards to Ishto. One who goes out, he divorced his wife. You can go ahead and marry anyone you want except for Ploni. If she marries somebody else, then she gets widowed or divorced. Then she's the original to the first person. So even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that his mutter in this case, not Banav Mamzerim, it's Ella B'Almanas. Rather, it must be on the condition. And therefore, that was the kasha that Rabbi Kiva asked on the condition.
So
and therefore, we said,
so the second get, basically, the second get reset the first.
Yes, according to that, the second get, right? According, if you say chutz, ba'almanas, so then any condition the chara should be mevatel to get from before, and mevatel to get before the children of mamzerim. This is not a good point because we would find that by any tonight. Now, davar achad. Then Rabbi Kiva asked the second kasha. What was the second kasha? Harisha is an esrolov kohen. Let's say she was forbidden to Bab. She says you can marry anybody but Bab, and he was a kohen. Umeis Hamagarish, and the guy who divorced her, who said the condition, died. So Loinimsas Almana Etzlo, right? She is now a widow to Babu. Grusha Eitzakolam is considered to be a widow, a divorcee to everybody else. Right? So just like she can't marry Bab because she's a Grusha. So Eishes Chamura, certainly she's an Eishes to everybody else because the Gavi Bab, she's an Eishes, so she shouldn't be able to marry anybody. Uvemai. And now, how did Rabbi Kiva understand Rabbi Eliezer in this question? Now, remember, in the previous question, he understood it as Almanas. Now, in this question, how did he understand it? Almanas, if it was on the condition that you don't marry Bab, Hare Grusha Esla Business. All right. Turn the page, right? Hare Grusha Esla Business. So Lamaisa, that she would be right, she would be a divorcee with him was nus ela b'chutz. Rather, so therefore, it wasn't a condition because the condition only prohibits marriage; it doesn't prohibit nus. So therefore, it must be the case of chutz. Now, understand, Rabbi Kiva, yichutz svirle lusiv chutz, almanas svirle lusiv almanas. So we just had two different questions, Rabbi Kiva, and one of them he asked a kasha on Rabbi Eliezer. If Rabbi Eliezer understood as almanas, and the other one he had kasha on the chutz. So just pick a lane, Rabbi Kiva. The almanas svirle lusiv almanas. So Rabbi Kiva shemile diika damar chutz, diika damar almanas. So Rabbi Kiva actually heard, them saying the Shem Rabbi Eliezer two different ways. Some people understood it as chutz, and some people understood it as almanas. So man damar chutz high pircha, man damar almanas high pircha. So therefore, he has two different kashas. So even if you understand of chutz, he has a kasha, and if you understand of almanas, he also has a kasha. My pircha. And now, what is the kasha on the second one? Say that she should be an Ashes ish to everybody else. So Nema Isser Kahuna Shani. It what suggested, you can say that maybe the Isser Kahuna were more machmer. In other words, we're going to say she's a grusha to this Bab, right? And therefore, right, she can't go ahead and marry him. So Nema Isser Kahuna Shani. Rabbi Eliezer nami Isser Kahuna Kamaisiwa. Right, as we learned earlier, Rabbi Eliezer learned this halacha that it remains with her from Isser Kahuna. So therefore, you can't say that Isser Kahuna is different because we learned from the Isser Kahuna. So therefore, we must say Rava K'Rabbi Yanai Mishuzaki Kamasni. So that really that he doesn't learn from Isser Kahuna, rather he learns from Li'ish Acher. Right, he learns V'Haisa Li'ish Acher. That's what. So since he learns not from Kahuna, we can say that perhaps Kahuna is different. By Kahuna, maybe she's treated as a grusha because the Abida, she's grusha. Therefore, actually not by him. But when it comes to Ashish, we're not going to say she's a married woman because she's a married woman still to Bob, and therefore she's not prohibited as a married woman to everybody else. And to that's. And Amar Len Rabbi Yeshua, Eid Mashim Nesa'ari Lachar Misa. We don't ask on Rabbi Eliezer after Misa. So maybe the Yeshua Kavase Svirle. Are you going to tell me that Rabbi Yeshua holds, right, as he said, you can't ask Rabbi Eliezer. Are you going to tell me that Rabbi Yeshua holds like Rabbi Eliezer? But he himself asked a question. How can he come? This is what he says. Right? I have my own kashas on it. So me who paying the didi, but me or you, you can't go ahead and ask questions on Rabbi Eliezer after the Misa. Well, my pircha Rabbi Yeshua. What was Rabbi Yeshua's question? The time in the Brisa. Rabbi Yeshua, Makish Kaidmi Havia Shnia Kaidmi Havia Rishon. We compare the kedushin of the first to the second. Just like back when she originally got married to the original husband, there were no strings attached. She was free to everybody. So too, the second should be no strings attached. But you can't say there's strings attached. Therefore, it can't be that when she's divorced, she's not like a woman who's never got married before. She still has strings attached from the first marriage. So therefore, it doesn't make sense.
So Yeshua is just saying against all tonight.
The what?
Yeshua is saying against all tonight. He doesn't like tonight the Yerushim.
Right, well, because it's still, right.
It doesn't matter what tonight is, whether it's not married Bob, not going
so we're still going to get to crease, right? We're still going to get there. Good point. Let's see. So Gufa. So first, let's get to the other point. So Rabbi Eliezer agrees with Megarish Ishto. You're mutter to marry anybody except for Bab. And she married somebody else. And she got ordered a divorce. She's allowed to go ahead now and marry Bab. Right? So Rabbi Eliezer agrees to that. Once she marries somebody else, that is over. Now, so hey. So Shuvah Dibre Rabbi Eliezer says so we respond. So you can respond on the Rishon ben Elazar. So hey right? The Shuvah Dibre Rabbi Eliezer. Hey Chamatzin she said Aser v'zamatir. I understand. How could you find that this one Aser and this one Matir? And I was the first husband Aser to Bab. Now she marries somebody else, and he's the matir. Matir's her to Bob because once she ends that marriage. Below, we don't find that. Well, let's say by Yavama, the Baal Oyster, that a husband marries a woman and now us to everybody else. The Yavam Matin, the Yavam does Chalitza, now she's mutter to everybody else. So the husband was the one who was basically asked her, and the brother was Matir her. Gemara says, no, Hasam Yavam who the Kasrla. Really, the Yavam, he himself is Asr, right? The Mivel, Asher Bekaima, right? Because if he does Yibum, then the only way for her to be married, permitted to others is by him dying or him divorcing her afterwards. So you see that he's the one who also is, he's the one who also answers and he's the one who matters. I Hare Nadarim. What about Nadarim? The Neider Asr, the Chachamatir, that a person makes the Neder, he makes things Asr, and the Chachamatir. No, it's only with Charata, right? With remorse, and that remorse comes from the original person. It comes from the original person from the night there. So therefore, basically, he's the one who's answers and he's the one who's matters. What about the husband revoking it? The Isha Nadaris, Subal Mefer, that the woman prohibits something and the husband permits it. So also over there, you could have Pinchas Mishvei the Rabba, Mishvei the Rabba. Kol hanaderes, whoever goes out and makes another, al das baila hinaderes. So this is basically on the husband. So therefore, it's the das of the husband. So therefore, he is the one who answers and he's the one who permits. Period. Now we mentioned this before. Nene Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah of Amar Krisus davar hakares beino leveino. According to Eliezer ben Azariah, so Krisus has to be he's cut off from her. There's nothing, no strings attached ever from the husband. So alamata shein a Krisus, right? So we see over here that in our case, it's not Krisus when he says, Ella Laploni. I've Rabbanan. So we're at the other Rabbanan who learn Krisus the other way. Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Taraldin, Rabbanan, hi, Krisus my alphabet. So what do they do then? Look at the time of the Brisa. I'll give you this again, the condition that you never drink wine. Or you never go to your father's house.
How are you?
I
can't hear. Listen,
go on mute.
I want to know you because
here. Yeah. All right. So you say, I'm not sure. So if someone divorces someone and says you can never drink wine again, I'll divorce you. You can never go to your father's house. Ain't that Krisus? That's not Krisus. But if he says Shleishim Yom, you can't drink for 30 days. You can't go to your father's house. Then 30 days. Then Harei Ze Krisus. Then that is Krisus. You know what does Karis mean? Something temporary. Temporary can last. If it's permanent, then it's no good. V'idach Karis Mika Krisus. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah says no. We learned that from it says Krisus and not Karis. So therefore, you can learn both out. Nafka. The Idach, no, it's Karis Krisus like darshan. They don't darshan both. They only darshan that something can't be permanent, but if it's like 30 days, then it'll be okay. And Amar Rav is speaking of such a case. He says you can't drink wine as long as I live. Ein ze krisus. That's not krisus. But if he says the life of somebody else, harei ze krisus. Then you can't, right? As long as Alex is alive, then you can't drink wine, right? No shaykhs in the marriage, but another person, then that is considered to be krisus. One says, I understand. Why somebody else? Dilma Mais, tonight. Perhaps Alex is going to die in 2 weeks, and therefore she's not permitted to wine. So Chai Didei Nami. Well, he himself, the husband, could die. Dilma Mais coming later tonight, and therefore she also did. Perhaps the husband will die in 2 weeks, and she can drink wine after that. Rather, Ema Kol Yemei Chayechi Ein Zekrisus. If he says to her, you can't drink wine all of your life. That doesn't work because that is strings attached forever. If it's strings attached forever, then it doesn't work. But if he says, all the days of my life, he could drop dead next week, or Chayifloni, or somebody else, because they could also drop dead. That's Krisus because then it's possible for her to live after and be permitted to drink wine. But if it was based on her life, then she would never be able to drink wine because the only way for her to be able to drink wine is if she dies. If she dies, obviously she can't drink. So 2 dots, 5 lines from the bottom. So, one last question. Rava Rav Nachman. Let's say he says, I'm going to divorce you for today, but tomorrow you're my wife again. Right? No, the strings attached. The strings attached here is not to who, but rather it is when, the time on it. So, Mahu, what is the halacha there? See, Tiboy the Rabbi Eliezer, Tiboy the Rabbanan. You ask both according to Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanan two different sheets in a Mishnah. Tiboy the Rabbi Yezer, you ask according to Rabbi Yezer, who holds that a person can have strings attached and say you're divorced, we're going to say everybody else except for so and so. Ad kanloi kamer Rabbi Yezer awesome. Elo dilaman kashari lidilielum. He who is permitted to everyone in the world but Bob, so she's permitted to forever. But over here, but over here you're permitted to everybody, but it's not forever. It's only for 24 hours. Or maybe you can have strings attached. And Tiboy the Rabbanan, you ask according to the Rabbanan, who says you can't do that. Over there, it's not completely severed. But over here, maybe you can say Kevan de Pascha. Over here, maybe once he says you're divorced for 24 hours, you're divorced for good, and then you don't get remarried after 24 hours. She's considered to be completely divorced. So it would be a valid divorce. He says you're divorced for 24 hours, and then you're married to me after that. So you are divorced, but you don't come back to the husband unless you do another kedushin. Came in the Pascha. So Basa Deboy Hadar Pasha, after he asked the question, then they answered, Mistabra. It's logical to say we said Bein the Rabbi Eliezer, Bein the Rabbanan, Kevan the Pascha. Once he goes in, I'm divorced, give it 24 hours, and then after that you're married, Pascha. You're still divorced forever, and therefore in such a case, it would not work the 24-hour divorce, so you can't do that before you go to Vegas, and therefore she is considered to be divorced forever in such a case. We'll stop it at 2 dots.
What's the end?